So this morning, excuse me, in front of Judge Case, Kente Bell was arraigned on the indictment. If you recall, we had an incident back on March 29th of 2022 at approximately 6 p.m. Where it started that there was a high-speed police chase involving a number of police officers, a number of police vehicles, and Mr. Bell in the vehicle that he was driving in the city of Buffalo that went into Cheektowaga for a little bit and then came back in the city of Buffalo. That high-speed chase also included numerous shots being fired, allegedly both by Mr. Bell and by various police officers. An arrest was made at the time, and Mr. Bell was initially charged with 3 counts of attempted murder in the first degree of Buffalo police officers. There were 3 Buffalo police officers that sustained injuries from that incident, and that was the initial charges. Since March 29th, 2 of my ADAs, ADA Crystal Fuco and ADA Frank Strano, have taken on this case, and they have worked a tremendous amount of hours in going through all of the evidence and all of the crime scenes and all the body cam video and everything that's out there to kind of piece together what exactly happened here and what occurred. And I know back in March, I had put this map up here and did a preliminary review of what I believed happened at the time. I will say that I was pretty spot on. A couple things I was wrong on, and I'm going to change today. But overall, I was pretty spot on about what occurred back in March there, and I will now clarify and talk about what the results of our investigation brought out. So, first of all, this happened on March 29th, 2022. It started at about 6 p.m. approximately that evening. One of the things that I'm going to make a correction on was that this initially started off as a driving incident. Mr. Bell and a passenger were allegedly driving their vehicle on East Ferry, and a Buffalo patrol vehicle with 2 officers in the car noticed that he had tinted windows. They ran the plates, and it was determined that the registration was suspended. Mr. Bell pulled into the Broderick Park there and kind of pulled into a parking spot with the police officers in one vehicle following them into the park. And that's when the initial stop occurred. The police officers, 2 female police officers, got out of the vehicle. They approached Mr. Bell, had a conversation with him about his registration being suspended. And at some point, Mr. Bell allegedly took off in his vehicle from Broderick Park. He got back onto Ferry. He then got onto Niagara, then to Amherst Street, then to Military, then to Austin, then back on Niagara Street, onto the 198, onto the 33, got off on Bailey, got onto Walden, went into Cheektowaga and got onto Pine Ridge, then came back in the city, got on Genesee, got onto Fillmore, and this is where I'm not 100% positive on. At the time, back in March, I said that when he came allegedly down Fillmore here and then turned on William, I'm not so sure about William. I'm getting conflicting information on whether or not William is correct. It doesn't matter. in any event, he made a right-hand turn somewhere off of Fillmore and got onto Genesee, and then proceeded up Genesee to East Ferry, where it ended at the corner of East Ferry and Fillmore. So everything that I put forward on the map back in March is correct, except for I'm not 100% down here, but it's neither here nor there. He has been indicted and charged and arraigned this morning on 5 counts of attempted murder in the first degree. The first count of attempted murder in the first degree is the first shots that he fired on, allegedly, on Austin and Cale Street, right here. He allegedly fired at the two police officers in the one vehicle who initially had pulled him over in Broderick Park. So that's the first account of attempted murder. 2 shots fired at those police officers while in the car, while both were driving, him and the police officers at Austin and Cale. There was no police shots fired in response. There were no shots fired in the entire time he was on a 198, and none the entire time that he was on a 33. When he got off on Bailey, the second count of attempted murder of the police officers occurred in the Bailey and Langfield area, in the vicinity of Bailey and Langfield. Again, shooting at a police vehicle, officers who were chasing him. This was the incident where one of the officers, Officer Sheehan, was hit at that location right there. The third count of attempted murder of a police officer in the first degree was a few blocks down south on Bailey and Arden. Again, that was shots fired allegedly by Mr. Bell into a police vehicle where there were police officers in the vehicle. The fourth count of attempted murder in the first degree is at the the Genesee Fillmore area right here. So after Bailey and Arden here, there were no shots fired at all as he was proceeding into Cheektowaga and then came back in the city of Buffalo. And then there were allegedly shots fired by him, again at police officers in vehicles at Genesee and Fillmore. That is a fourth count of attempted murder in the first degree. And then the last count, the fifth count of attempted murder in the first degree, is at the end at Fillmore and East Ferry. At this time, officers were out of their vehicle. And he allegedly shot at a Buffalo police officer as that Buffalo police officer was approaching his vehicle. At no time during this whole incident did Mr. Bell ever get out of his car. There were no shots fired by any police officers for the first 3 times that Mr. Bell allegedly shot at them. After the Austin Glore first shooting, there were no response fired shots by the Buffalo police. At Bailey and Langfeld, no returning shots by the Buffalo police. And at Bailey and Arden, again, no returning shots fired by the Buffalo police. The Buffalo police did not start shooting until after the 4th incident. And then they continued to fire at the end when his car had crashed and come to a stop there at East Ferry and Fillmore. So he's charged with 5 counts of attempted murder in the first degree of Buffalo police officers, 1 count of criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree, 1 count of unlawful fleeing, and 1 count of reckless endangerment for the whole incident. There were, at a minimum, approximately 14 shots fired by Mr. Bell in this entire incident. Approximately 16 Buffalo police officers fired their weapon in the course of this entire incident. The number of shots fired by police officers is numerous. I can't put a number on that. The majority of the shots fired by the Buffalo police officers were at the end when he had crashed. Bailey. Mr. Bell was hit approximately 3 to 4 times. He was hit in the hand, the shoulder, and the lower extremity. He is still in rehab right now, but he was able to come to court today. He had a previous injury to himself that partially paralyzed him to some degree. He was driving a motor vehicle where he did not have to use his legs. And so that is why it was easy for him to kind of reach out of the car and turn and fire back at police officers in the course of this whole incident here, because he didn't have to use his feet to drive at all, which made it easier for him to shoot outside the vehicle. As you may or may not have picked up, I only mentioned one police officer who was allegedly hit by Mr. Bell. Initially, as I said earlier, there were 3 officers who were hit, and all 3 were initially charged on Mr. Bell for the attempted murder. In the course of our investigation, we came to the determination that only one of the officers was hit by Mr. Bell. The other 2 were hit by friendly police fire. And so those 2 attempted murder charges are not included in the 5 counts. The 2 officers that were hit by friendly fire are not included in one of the 5. And so that is one change that we have made, obviously, to the initial arrest. And that came about by the great investigation that my 2 lawyers did. Same as yesterday, not only were Mr. Bell's, was his conduct scrutinized, but the conduct of all officers involved in this incident were also scrutinized. And I have come to the conclusion, again, that none of the police officers acted in a criminal behavior. They were all legally justified in what they did and the shots that they fired. So there will be no criminal proceedings at all against any of the Buffalo police officers. I will end on this note, though, that there is no penal law violation for that articulates common sense. And so I cannot charge any Buffalo police officer with a violation of common sense. I will leave that to Commissioner Gramalia and let him handle that. Questions?
What are you saying there, that they didn't use common sense in opening fire the way they did?
In some occasions along this whole route right here, I would say that common sense was not used.
Yeah. Was Bell alone in the car?
No. Bell, at the end, yes. Bell initially was not alone. He had a female passenger in the car with him when he was driving initially down East Ferry, when he was pulled over in a broader park. That female was in the car when he took off. That female was in the car the entire way up to Niagara Street here, and the female jumped out of the car literally at Military and Glore.
So she's not charged?
No. She was then picked up by a police vehicle, and here's a good example of common sense, Dave. She was picked up by a police vehicle and kept in the back of the police vehicle throughout the entire ride here, along for a joyride here. That probably wasn't common sense.
How many incidents would you say, or shootings by police officers, would you say would fall under that umbrella of not using the best common sense? Certainly at Erie, right? Given the amount of bullets that were fired.
Well, I'm not gonna. The amount is not part of my common sense analogy. One of the officers was struck at the end here, okay, and let's just say the tactical maneuvers by the police when they got out of their vehicles and encircled his car at the end led to that police officer being struck. And so the way that happened at the end, probably not the best method, but the amount of, don't get me wrong, the amount of gunfire had nothing to do with that. It was more the way that they were positioned around the car. The second police officer who was struck by, he was a passenger in a car, and his partner, who was driving the car, was shooting out his front windshield. And part of the bullet must have ricocheted off the windshield and came back and struck him in the vest. Now, again, there was no injury at all. The particle just came and hit his vest and fell right down. So there was no injury at all of that. But that probably wasn't the best thing to do.
So 5 officers were shot in total.
I'm sorry, what? 3.
3 were shot.
No, 3 officers were shot.
Okay.
1 was shot allegedly by Mr. Bell. 2 were shot by friendly fire. But there were 5 counts of attempted murder that only 1 of the 5 counts was someone hit. The other 4 counts, no one got struck.
Okay, so it involves
The attempt.
Under 5 different officers?
Yes.
Or under 5 different theories or something?
5 different incidents. There were, some of the cars had multiple officers in the car.
Would you think, I think the minimum on the murder first is 15 to 25.
Well, no, the minimum on the murder first is 20 to life. Now, attempted. Now, the problem, I mean, all 5 technically can, since they were all 5 different incidents, they can be consecutive. However, there's a cap at 40.
And I was going to ask you,
Cap.
would it surprise you if eventually the defendant gets convicted of 5 different counts, that he would enjoy what some might sneeringly refer to as the multi-offense discount?
Yes, he's capped at 40 to life. Now, also, does the 40? Now, the 40 in life might not include. Now, he's on probation right now for a gun charge, so he's facing the 7 years on that gun charge as well. So that 7 years can maybe tacked on to 40 for a total of 47. But I mean, I'm not 100% positive on that, but there's a possibility that may be.
Which officers were shot by friendly fire?
Sheehan was the one who was shot allegedly by Mr. Bell. The other 2 were friendly fire.
So there were 16 officers involved in this.
Oh, there's many more than that, but only 16 fired their weapons.
How many more?
Many more. There was well over 20. There was, but not all of them fired their weapons, though.
And 19 crime scenes.
19? No. I don't know that. I mean, I didn't make. From my standpoint, there's only 5 crime scenes. Okay, because I'm only charging 5 counts of attempted murder in the first degree at 5 separate locations. Now, again, it was a whole path here. I mean, that led to that. But from my standpoint, there's really only 5 crime scenes.
And how long did the chase last?
Any idea? 15 to 20 minutes.
And did you ever calculate how many miles it lasted?
No, but I can figure that out for you, though. I mean,
So more than 20 police officers with one guy who.
take a picture of that. You can Google it, Dave.
I was gonna.
Go ahead, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the driver was disabled from the waist down,
To some degree, yes.
and we have more than 20 police officers. I mean, is it unusual to have this many officers involved with pursuing one person?
Well, it's unusual, yes, because it hasn't happened before. But you've got to remember that they had no idea. They had no idea that he was disabled while they were chasing him. Okay, and quite frankly, the fact that he's allegedly firing out the window at multiple police officers, the last thing that they're on their mind is how his legs are working. Quite frankly, so I don't think that's a. I don't think that has. I think it's apples and oranges. Quite frankly.
Just to be clear,
Yeah,
the
Jeff.
car that he's driving.
Yeah.
Is equipped in a way for someone who is paralyzed, right, to not press on the gas?
Yes.
Or, so he physically doesn't have to press on the gas? How is
I don't know exactly, but there's some mechanism where he can use his hands to like use the pedal. But
he's not even in some like specialized chair in which he can then maneuver.
Not that I'm aware of. No. I think the car is equipped with different things.
It wasn't that the explanation that he gave apparently to not go for the registration?
I didn't charge him with a registration violation, so.
No, I'm just talking about the narrative. Apparently there was an issue with him reaching for the registration, and the officers then went back to the car, and then that's when he takes off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, that's not an excuse to take off, though.
No.
Oh.
I'm just saying in terms of the narrative.
Yeah. They at the time he took off, either one of the two officers, I believe, was back at the car checking the registration, and that one officer was either on their way back, walking back up to the car, or walking from it. I'm not sure exactly which one, but yes, it was. He took off during the roughly time period that they were checking his registration. Yeah.
And before the shootout on Ferry, how many times did he turn around or stop and shoot?
5. Well, 4.
4 times?
4.
And in those shootings, did police return fire?
They returned fire after number 4.
Okay.
So after number 4, so not for 1, 2, and 3, no. After number 4, yes, and then at number 5.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is getting nitpicky.
Yeah.
So the police said initially there was a suspicious vehicle. That's what they.
Tinted windows. Yeah, he was. So one of the differences that I talked about in March, Aaron, was I think I might have said back in March that he was kind of hanging out in the park, and they rolled up on him. That's not true. He was driving on East Ferry, had tinted windows. The officers saw him driving. They ran his plates, saw the reg was suspended, then followed him into Broderick Park. He pulled up in a little parking, grassy area there, and they pulled up behind him and got out of the car.
What kind of gun did he?
It was a pistol, right? Pistol.
And it was legally purchased?
No, illegal. He's charged with a weapons violation.
And it also had, like magazine rounds that were above capacity?
Is that true? What's that? He said what? Yes, it's an extended magazine. Please note though that the gun was damaged in fire at the end of the scene there.
So you said he had a prior conviction, right?
He's on probation for a gun charge.
A felony.
Yes.
So he wouldn't have been able to. This was not his lawfully purchased and legally registered handgun.
That's a great assumption. Yes.
I mean, based on the situation that happened here with the friendly fire, do you believe that additional training is necessary for police officers in a situation like this?
That is a question for the police commissioner. I will stay in my lane here and just talk about criminal matters. I got out a little bit of my lane and used the phrase common sense, because I think that if I didn't, that I'd be remiss, quite frankly. But as far as actual training and what actions will be taken by the Buffalo Police Department and steps going forward, they're the experts in that, not me. I'll leave it to them.
Now, when there is a friendly fire, I mean, I guess this would also be a question for Commissioner Gramalia, but are officers placed on a temporary leave until that investigation?
You got to ask him. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So one of the officers hit by friendly fire, you had already said, was in the passenger seat.
Yes.
And somehow, because of the shooting through the windshield, what about the other, whoever
An officer at the end of the scene was outside his vehicle, and was struck, by another officer also outside his vehicle.
Do you know which one that was? Was it Wilson or?
McCarthy.
So you got a gun, you mentioned one incident, I mean.
Which one?
If I'm clear, where the officer, the bullet ricocheted,
Yeah.
and injured one officer.
Yeah.
Partner, whoever was driving and firing through a windshield,
Yes,
just like in the movies?
yes.
It's kind of nuts, isn't it?
Common sense. Yeah, I'll stick with my common sense word, phrase.
Already broken?
What's that?
Windshield was already broken when he was firing through?
I believe he probably broke the windshield with his own gun.
Were they being shot at while he was shooting through the windshield?
Well, they thought they were. And shots had been fired by Mr. Bell previous to that.
So just to sum it up, when you talk about common sense, you brought it
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And you said not the amount, it's the manner in which the attempt was made to fire and perhaps.
Yes, and
It's the manner in which
correct,
things went down.
correct. That's a perfect word for it, manner.
I mean, considering the distance of this chase, do you think it seems to me it's amazing that no one else was hurt.
Amazing. I agree. Totally amazing. Amazing that no one else was hurt. Amazing that there was no car accidents. Until the very end. At the very end, he ran to a pole or a sign of some kind. But all along the way, no other accidents, no other cars involved in any accidents, no pedestrians hit. No, it's amazing. I would agree. That's a perfect word.
Did he crash because of police action, or did he crash because of his own driving?
I can't tell.
There are two Erie County probation officers who have been brought up as not handling procedure correctly. Have you learned any more about that?
I'll leave the specifics of that question to the county executive's office or the probation office. I have come to learn, though, that a call was made by an individual who allegedly had some knowledge of Mr. Bell having a weapon, and a call was made into the probation office about a month or so prior to this happening, where the person on that call articulated to the person on the other end of the phone that Mr. Bell is on probation and allegedly has a gun. And there was some follow-up to that by the probation department, and that's where I'll leave it. And then so any further questions about that follow-up and about what happened, about disciplinary matters, you'll have to direct to the county executive's office or probation department. I can tell you that, I'm not trying to duck it, but there's no charges at all against any probation officers from my end at all. So again, just like Buffalo Police administrative procedures, I'll leave the administrative procedures to probation to them as well.
And they're not under investigation at all?
They've been cleared by me, the probation officer, of any criminal wrongdoing, just so are the police officers as well. So now there's no criminal wrongdoing from an administrative or common sense questions, problems that probation had, I'll leave it to them.
Do you know the relationship between the female passenger and the driver?
They're just friends.
And she was not injured?
She was not injured, as far as
She
I know,
wasn't
yeah.
treated or anything like
Yeah,
that?
no, I'm nothing aware of, no. Yeah.
And is she, was she asked to, cooperate with police?
I can't talk about that. I can't tell you who my witnesses are.
Okay.
Is he in any kind of medical restraints now, or is he in a regular jail?
He's in rehab. He's still over at ECMC, but he's in a rehab. He's in a rehab unit. So yeah, he was brought over today for the arraignment, but he's going back to the rehab. Okay.
I know you say that it's practically impossible to know how many shots were fired by police, but can you give perhaps maybe an estimate?
Yeah.
At Erie?
What's that?
At least at Erie?
Well, I can do this for you. I can tell you that approximately, probably, kind of double words there that are kind of weasel words, but I would say that approximately 80% of the shots that were fired by the Buffalo police officers in this whole incident occurred at the end. So I'll give you that.
Are you looking at maximum sentencing here?
Oh, well, he's presumed innocent until guilty, obviously, and so, again, all these are just accusations. They are just charges. He has not been found guilty of anything. He's, like I said, presumed innocent. These are just allegations. And if, in fact, he is whatever he's found guilty of or pleads guilty to, we are going to obviously ask for the max. Yes.
Yeah.
Assuming that happens, obviously. He gets a fair trial, and he will get a fair trial. Okay. All good? All right. Thank you.